Okay, this lesson introduces processing two-dimensional arrays. Printing arrays, summing all elements, and then looking at the largest sum of rows. And then the last one is passing two-dimensional arrays to methods. So let me start with initializing two-dimensional array with the input values. I'm going to use a standard input device, keyboard. Again, let me briefly explain what I'm going to do next 4 or 5 minutes. So I'm going to construct one array reference variable that points to data structure. It consists with rows and columns. I try to make a very small two-dimensional array. 3 rows, 2 columns. My array, let's say numbers, again I'm going to use integer values. So 10 to 60. But these values will be input by end user using keyboard. So when we construct the object my array, it's going to have 6 elements with an initial value or default value 0. Then we are going to receive 6 integer values to enter into this two-dimensional array. So we are going to process row by row. Then each row follow up with columns. So that's why I write it down 10 to 60, left to right hand side and top to bottom. Okay, let's create a new project. Again, we have 10 to 60. So let me declare two-dimensional arrays with default value, new, and then int 3 by 2. Then send the input device. We need to use a scanner class, and then system input as a parameter. You need to import Java scanner class on the Java util scanner. So let me add simple instruction. Enter my array dot length, basically say 3 columns. And then 3 rows, and my array, let me use 0 as up to 2 columns. So my array 0 length and then columns. So 3 rows and 2 columns. Next one, I'm going to use a for loop. I refers to rows. Next line, I will use j that refers to column or column index. how many rows, my array length increased by 1. This time we are going to process columns. J refers to column index. My array depends on I, depends on row. First row, repeat 2 columns. Second row, which is number 1, and then last row is my array number 2. So here what we are trying to do is my array position can be depends on I and J. We will receive value input dot next int, so that we can process standard inputs that can be stored to my array. Let's print 2-dimensional arrays. Again, pretty much the same as the previous lines. Instead of getting inputs, we can just print it out output. So let me just copy paste it. So instead of getting input, we print it out on our standard output device, which is a console. I will use a print. And then here number 2. So we are doing number 1 and 2 together. So let me put it here. I think it should be up there. Again, we are doing 2 examples at the same time. So let me add 1 space, will be more readable. Then once we finish the J, which is column, when we start the next row, I will add new line. So it will be looks more visible or readable. So let's say 2 columns, and then we will add 3 rows. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. We will print in order. Again, let me just add some comments here. When I say row, that refers to index I. So we have index 0, 1, and 2. We have another index for column that I use J. That refers to column index 0 and 1. So that's something to do with the printing 2-dimensional array. We are processing each rows with columns. So first for loop process the first row. Then second for loop we process the columns associated with each row. Again here, so last row we processed with 2 columns. Okay, for 1 and 2. Let's move to the next one. Number 3, summing all elements. We are going to use variable index to sum all these numbers from 10 to 60. So my array row and column 0 and 0 plus move to next column, which is my array 0 and 1, so that we can process the first row. And we will process second row and third row. Let me make a minor adjustment so that will appear as a single line that represent first row. Okay, that's the first row. We continue for second row and then third row. So second row should be 1 instead of 0. Third row number 2 and then 2. We are going to add that to some variable. So say sum equal to 0. Then sum equal to all those index variable. I think that's all for this one. Okay, I think I will create a new Java file. Put the comments. Again, publish static void main and step-by-step key. Let me construct my array quickly. We already know initial value, so I'm going to use curly brackets. First row has a 10 and 20. And then I will repeat the same thing for the second row and then third row. Change the value to 30, 40, and then 50 and 60. Let's look at number 2, print to dimension array. So let me copy, paste it here, so that we can verify our array data structure. Again, that's correct. So if you look at the summing of elements, it's pretty similar to printing two-dimensional arrays. So for loop, so instead of printing each element, we're going to add our elements to sum. So let's move the comments here, and then in sum equal to 0. Then print, instead of printing, we are going to add them to some variable. So my array and then I and j. Okay, and let's print sum is sum. I think pretty much that's all for exercise number 3. So if you add 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, it's going to give you 210. Let's look at the number 4, summing all elements by column. So we are looking at here. Normally we process row by row, but we are looking at summing all elements by columns. So this time we are going to process column by column. So first column has 3 rows and second column has 3 rows. So our focus is not based on rows. This time our focus is based on columns. So if you look at the first column, we are looking at 10 plus 50 for the first column. That's going to be 90. When you look at the second column, we are looking at 40, 60, so it's going to be 120. So what we are looking at is the first column, 90. Second column, we are looking at 120. So we focus on processing column with the rows. Okay, let me, I think I don't have to create a new Java file. I can do that here. Okay, I will introduce one variable called sum by column. Then we are going to process J column first. Don't forget J is a column index. If you are confused, instead of J, you just put COL column. We need to identify how many columns. So there are two columns. We will pick the first row, which is 0. So my array 0 to length will return number 2 columns. So we're going to repeat 2 times. And when we process the first column, we need to process rows associated with the first column, which is going to be 3 rows. So start with 0. And then my array dot length, that will return size of array for the row. So we repeat 3 times. And then sum by column. My array, and then ij. Let me verify. So sum for each column. Is sum by column. I think we need to process each column, so it should be declared inside, outside, otherwise we'll override it. So move to line number 22. So 10, 50. Then initialize with 0 and then continue for the second column. So it should be inside, okay? So if you look at here, I know it looks confusing, but the first one say 10 plus 30 is 40. And then next one say 40 plus 50 is 90, that's correct. And then if you look at the column 1 is 20, that's correct. Column 1 is again plus 40 is 60. The last one is 120. That is correct. So let's move line number 25. We print it after we process column. So that is going to print sum of each column only. So we put it outside, okay? That's what we want. So now it says the 90 and 100. That's correct, isn't it? 10 plus 30 plus 50 is 90, and 20, 40, 60 is 120. I think that's all. Please practice. Thank you.